Welcome, everyone. We're going to get started in just another minute. You're in the right place. This is Share the Road, getting around the campus safely. So we thank you for joining us, learning our top 10 tips and ways to get around, no matter what you're riding to get around. That includes bikes and scooters and skateboards and people driving. So we thank you for joining us. Okay, I have high noon, so we're going to go ahead and get started. We'll start with introductions. My name is Ariadne Delon Scott. I am the Assistant Director of Active Mobility at Stanford, and I manage all things bike related. I've been car-free for over 25 years, and I've been at Stanford for 13 years. And I'll let Anna take over and introduce herself.
Thanks, Ariadne. So I'm Anna Walters. I work with Bikes Make Life Better, but we contract with Stanford and other companies in the Bay Area on bike programs and facilities. So we've been supporting Stanford for a number of years now. I'm also car-free. I've been car-free for 10 years. I live in San Francisco and I ride everywhere by bike. That includes taking my bike on BART and other modes of public transportation. All right.
If you have any questions, you can put them in the chat. If we don't get to them today, just because this is a shorter condensed presentation for 30 minutes, we will follow up with the presentation and also a formal Q&A. So this presentation is, as we mentioned, for bicyclists, motorists, scooters, people riding motorcycles, mobility device users, skateboarders, and micro mobility users. So we're going to cover our top 10 rules. And number one is a reminder from our Stanford public safety partners. From Stanford Public Safety, they want to share some tips for drivers. Drivers are reminded to turn on vehicle headlights at dusk and be vigilant for cyclists and pedestrians. Additionally, drivers are required to stop for pedestrians at crosswalks, slow down and obey the speed limit, yield to pedestrians and cyclists when turning. We're going to cover more of that on a later slide. Look for bicyclists before opening your door. So as a motorist, you always want to scan behind you quickly before you get out of the car to make sure there aren't any cyclists passing you. Use caution when passing stop vehicles, allow 3 feet when passing. That's actually a law in the state of California. And then you want to yield to vehicles and bicyclists in the roundabout, and we're going to cover that too. Another safety reminder from our Diversity and Access Office this past October was National Diversity Awareness Month. And we celebrate and recognize how unique and diverse our community is. And that includes diversity with individuals that have disabilities. So you want to remember as a user, when you ride a bike or use a skateboard or scooter, to give an audible warning when you're passing or approaching. Pass always on the left. You can even call out passing on the left. And you should also remember that the person you are passing may be hearing impaired and they may not hear you. So just be attentive, use bike lights at dusk and nighttime too, and be courteous and respectful. Our tips from our Marguerite bus drivers are also really key too. They want to remind you to not follow a bus too closely. Keep at least 3 feet of distance between you and the bus. If you need to pass, you want to pass on the left and take the lane. And don't talk on your cell phone when riding your bike. We invited our Marguerite drivers to our new student orientation bike skills training. And it was incredible because they put students in the driver's seat in a parked bus and then rode a bike up behind to illustrate that the driver couldn't see you if you're riding in the blind spot. So remember to use caution, slow down riding your buses, remember those blind spots. The drivers say if you can't see the driver, they can't see you. And we thank our Marguerite drivers. Their motto is safety first.
Yeah, and we also had a great comment in the chat. it was from Kern, and Kern says that in some countries they teach drivers to open their driver door with their right hand, so kind of reaching over to open the door. And this forces drivers to look over to their left shoulder before they open it. This is just so you avoid opening your door right into a cyclist that might be passing a line of parked cars. So yeah, that's a really great point. Thanks for sharing that.
Anna, have you been doored before? Living in the city, almost doored?
Unfortunately, I have been doored. Luckily, it wasn't a big deal, but yep, it definitely happened, and it's really scary when it happens. So another thing you can do as a cyclist is just be watching out for lights on in the interiors of cars or drivers that might be getting out. Just be extra vigilant. Okay, so our next tip is a little bit of common sense, but it's be courteous and respectful. We all have to share the same space, so it really makes it better for everyone if we do so with respect. So here's just some tips to try and accomplish this goal. But really, as I was saying before, always be aware of what's around you. If you can anticipate something that might be happening, you can react ahead of time and then thus avoid a situation. We always want to be sharing the roads and that or spaces. So that includes paths. So if you're on a bike path, there's lots of pedestrian, bike, skateboard only areas at Stanford. So it's really important to know who's using the paths with you and just act accordingly. Always pass on the left, rules like that. You want to make an audible alert when you're passing others. I don't have a bell on my bike, so I usually just call out, hey, passing on the left. But if you have a bell, those are also always great to use. You also want to be extra careful at intersections and driveways. These are kind of hot spots where collisions can occur, especially if you have people that are backing out, drivers backing out in cars. They might not see you when you're passing. So just be hyper vigilant. Also, you want to yield to traffic in most cases, but especially when it comes to roundabouts. Stanford has roundabouts on campus. I believe there are 6, but correct me if I'm wrong.
You're right, 6.
Okay.
6 main.
Yeah, they're really great because they keep traffic flowing, but you want to make sure to yield to traffic already in them. And we'll go over more tips about how to navigate roundabouts later in this presentation. And then always look out for crossing pedestrians. So these are the most vulnerable road users out there, and they really require your attention and vigilance. So stop before crosswalks and stop lines and yield to them when you see them. Go ahead.
So I'll cover this. This was taken in 2013. This is an illustration of what you don't want to do when you're riding your bike. This student is riding with both headphones covering both ears, which is not permitted by law. Technically, you can leave one ear uncovered. He's talking on a cell phone, which is not legal to do. No hands on the handlebar. So you need to be in control of your bike at all times. If something should happen and he needs to quickly stop, he, is not going to be able to respond quick enough to do something with that coffee cup. So remember to keep both hands on the handlebars, no cell phones, earbuds can't cover both ears. You can keep one ear uncovered. We recommend your left ear, so at least you can hear traffic coming up behind you. And then of course, wear a helmet for every ride. And just remember, everyone is distracted. You may be a super safe rider or driver, but that doesn't assure that everyone around you is safe. So if you get into the mindset that you're just sort of driving your bike, not just riding your bike, that sort of changes how you feel about following all the rules of the road and just being respectful of everyone's rights while they're on the road too.
Okay, so tip number 3 is obey signs, signals, and laws. Again, this is a little common sense, but as a cyclist, you're also a vehicle, so you'll need to obey the same signals, signs, and laws that drivers do. So we'll just go over those real quick for review. So first is, stop at all stop signs, pretty standard. If you're a cyclist, that means stopping fully and putting one foot down before it's safe to continue, or you check to see if it's safe to continue. You want to ride to the right of the road or bike lane if you're going slower than traffic. So keep to the right is a good rule for both cyclists and drivers. And also, pedestrians, anyone kind of using a shared space. Ride with the flow of traffic. So that means if you're a cyclist, don't salmon in the bike lane, which means going the opposite direction in the bike lane. That's really unpredictable and unsafe. As we've covered before, headphones cannot cover both ears, and this goes for both drivers and bicyclists, but it's more pertinent to bicyclists. Make sure your vehicle is maintained. So just, if you're in a car, making sure you have all the right maintenance and you're not going to get stuck in a situation that might be dangerous for you. And then if you're a cyclist, that means just making sure all of your systems are in good working order, especially your brakes. Brakes are probably the most critical system to make sure it's working. You can always do a quick test before you ride just to make sure everything's good. Once again, we'll repeat, yield to pedestrians that are crossing intersections. And drivers, don't park or stop in the bike lanes. This just makes it really hard for cyclists to travel, especially if they're weaving kind of in and out of the bike lane. That makes them unpredictable to other drivers. So that's a good rule for drivers.
Next slide is always yield to pedestrians. They are the most vulnerable on the road. Again, basics, but always yield to pedestrians. They have the right of way at intersections when they enter, when it's safe to do so. On the road, you want to always stop behind the stop line, don't block the crosswalk, and always be on the lookout for crossing pedestrians and those using mobility devices such as wheelchairs and walkers. This little sign on the right, slow your wheels, was actually created by our Stanford road maintenance team because they saw so many almost near misses with cars and bikes not yielding pedestrians. I think it illustrates what can happen.
Yeah, definitely. That's a good one. Okay, so tip number 5, we're blazing through these. Be equipped. So this is really for cyclists and scooters and other kind of micro mobility or little vehicle users, but you always really want to wear a helmet and then also use lights. So we'll go over that right now. So a lot of times folks will wear helmets, but they won't fit them properly, which does them little good if they are to get into a crash or a situation like that. So we're just going to go over quickly how to fit a helmet. The first is that the brim of the helmet should fit across the middle of your forehead. So right across the middle. And then the straps on each side should make a Y shape over the ears as shown on the picture under arrow 2. The chin strap should be snug enough to fit 1 or 2 fingers underneath. So depending on comfort, I like kind of mine on the tighter side. So I usually just fit 1 finger. And then make sure to tighten the internal cage. So on the back of your helmet, you should have a wheel that you can turn one way to tighten in another direction to loosen. So just make sure it's tight, but not uncomfortably tight. We don't want you to cut off any circulation. The helmet shouldn't wobble around when you shake it to and fro or back and forth. So if that doesn't happen and it's fit, snug across the middle of your forehead, it's on right, and it will protect you in the event of a crash.
Anna and I can both testify that we have both crashed and not due to our fault. And you never think it'll happen to you. And a lot of it is distracted motorists that just aren't paying attention to. So it's always good prevention to wear a helmet. And our data indicates, the longer you're at Stanford and the older and wiser, helmet use increases. So our undergrads are at 14% for the last 2 to 3 years, but our School of Medicine is up now to 84%. So you sort of get wiser and more experienced, and we will never stop not promoting to wear a helmet for every ride.
Yeah, definitely. I was on a road ride where someone had forgotten to wear their helmet recently, and everyone looked at this person like, "Are you insane? Like, what are you doing on this 40-mile road ride?" So actually, I think it is the norm in the cycling communities. Maybe not as much in the freshman population at Stanford, but yeah, it's definitely what everyone does. Okay, so use lights. It's the law. This is for cyclists, but you can be ticketed for not using lights. Lights also help you see where you're going at night, and they also let others see that you're coming. Obviously, if you're a driver, you also legally have to have lights, but those come standard with the car. But we'll go over some other facets of this. So just to put it into context for everyone, 1/5 of bike trips are at night, but about 50% of fatalities happen in the dark. So that illustrates just how important using lights on your bike is. So what are your required lights? So you have to have by law a front white light and a back red light or back red reflector. We like to have a rear light. Reflectors work, but lights are better. And if you don't have lights, you can go stop by the campus bike shop and pick them up. They're fairly inexpensive and are going to keep you safe. You also need to have a yellow or white reflector on your front wheel and a red or white reflector on your rear wheel, and also a yellow or white reflector on the front and back of your pedal or your shoe. The good news is most bikes come stock with these reflectors, so the wheel reflectors and the pedal reflectors, so you shouldn't have to worry about going out and getting those. If for some reason your bike doesn't have one, maybe you got it on Craigslist or at the campus public safety bike sale, you can probably stop by the campus bike shop and they should have some laying around kind of in a parts bin or something. You could also probably order them, but those are what's legally required. I always like to increase, the number of lights on my bike, outside of what's legally required. And there's a lot of fun things you can do. There's frame lights, there's spoke lights. I have really powerful front and rear lights just so I can see a dark path that's in front of me. So we're very pro upping your light game here.
Good information. Pass carefully. Other road users can be unpredictable. So we're going to talk a little bit about passing. You want to remember to pass with care. So use caution at intersections. Pass on the left. For riders, you want to do a shoulder check before you go. So if you follow the green arrow, the line of travel of this bicycle rider, if his intention is to go straight through the intersection, he's in the bike lane. He wants to move forward, take a quick shoulder check to make sure there aren't any cars coming towards him. Use a hand signal that he's turning left. He wants to get in that left-hand lane. The car is going to turn right and he can proceed through the intersection. And then in a group, you want to ride in a straight line so others can pass safely and call out when you're passing. You don't want to pass on the right-hand side of that red car. So you always want to pass on the left. If you stay in the bike lane, you run a pretty high risk of that red car doing a right turn and hooking you as a rider. Not a good place to be.
Yeah, definitely great information. Right hook turns are one of the scarier things that can happen. We had a question in the chat. This is related to the bike light stats, crashes at night. Are these stats the night crashes for Stanford campus, or are they nationwide?
Those were nationwide.
Okay.
Nationwide, and we are getting data now from public safety. We have requested some data from public safety on roundabout intersections and crashes, and also on bike lights as well. So we'll be sharing that as soon as we have it, but that's national standards.
Great.
In the past, we've given out bike lights when we hosted free bike registration at Stanford. But for the past 2 years, our bicycle registration program was transitioned to public safety. It's now free and online. And so there aren't any bike like giveaways, although we do events where we give away bike lights too. But bike light use, according to every motorist that drives on our campus, no students use bike lights because all those complaints come into our office. So I can share that data. I would say less than half of the students currently on campus use bike lights, and it's probably less than that. It's unfortunate that they don't use them.
No, I agree. I mean, that's one of the key safety pieces of equipment that you need, absolutely. So you can, reach out to us if you have questions or visit the campus bike shop. They should have lights there. All right. So the next is communicate your intention. So if you're a driver, this is pretty obvious, but means using your blinker when you're turning. And then if you're a cyclist, this means using hand signals. So we'll go over this for those who might not know. When you're riding a bike, if you're turning left, you stick your left arm out in a straight line. that indicates you're turning left. If you're turning right, you have two options. You can either use that same left arm and point your hand upward, or you can stick your right arm out, similar to the left-hand side, to indicate you're turning right. Stopping is just kind of the reverse of the right-hand turn with your left arm. So stick your left arm out with your hand straight down. Stopping is kind of that same motion. You can kind of wave your arm back and forth, but slowing and stopping is generally the same, which is that downward pointed hand on your left side. This is just really to help protect you and keep you safe. It allows drivers and other road users to know where you're going. And you want to do this anytime you're turning or even changing position within a lane or changing a lane. And the way you do that is you do a shoulder check. So say you want to turn left, you'll do a check over your left shoulder as you would if you were a driver checking your blind spot. Make sure it's safe. You would extend your arm to signal. You would do one more check just to make sure nothing's changed, and then you would carefully move into the next lane or make your turn depending on what you're doing. So that's how you do hand signals, and let us know if you have any questions. Oh, it looks like we have a couple questions in the chat. Someone says that in a bind, I have seen students use their cell phone as a light. It's better than nothing and it makes them visible to oncoming traffic. I would say I agree with you, but that also means you have to ride one-handed usually, and that's not safe. So I would, if there's a way to attach your phone to your bike to make the light visible, I would do that instead. He says they grip the light with the handlebar together. Again, that makes it a little less stable for riding, but I agree, it is a compromise. I don't know, Ar, do you have thoughts on that?
You know, we used to co-teach a bike class with Stanford Public Safety, and at the time, Deputy Alan James, he's no longer with the department, but he said that you could use a light. And so I'll clarify that with public safety just to make sure that hasn't changed. But I think Anna makes a good point. You can use your phone as a light, but because of being distracted and having to hold your light in the handlebar, it doesn't really work. I mean, the requirements are, you know, that the light has to light up. I think it's 20 feet in front of you, and that's sort of hard to do with your phone. So I can clarify, and I'll include that in the Q&A follow-up. It's a great question.
Yeah, it's a great question. And honestly, I mean, I love it as a hack. It, you know, it shows that you're thinking outside the box and you want to, you know, keep yourself safe as a cyclist. So it is a good thinking. Okay, so make turns carefully. Ar, did you want to do this one? Or
I'll do it.
Okay.
So you want to know your turn options. So this is one of the four-way intersections on the Stanford campus. A good example, maybe coming down Palm Drive at Campus Drive or Arboretum. But for those on wheels, you want to scan and scan again before turning or moving. So as a cyclist, if you're the green dotted line and you want to turn left on campus, let's say onto Palm Drive, you want to look behind you, make sure that no one's coming up behind you closely. If there's a car that's too close, let them pass, and then, you know, get into that left-hand turn lane. You want to use blinkers or hand signals, so don't forget to signal. You're going to turn left. I usually sort of wave to motorists if they see me, just as a courtesy. As a walker or someone on roller skates, you can use the sidewalks too, and the crosswalk. So you want to walk your bike in the crosswalk. If you don't feel comfortable going directly through, you can always dismount and walk your bike across the crosswalk, or you can do sort of what they call, I think it's a San Francisco turn, is that right? Where you stop and sort of get in front of the car into the bike lane and then go in the same direction of the travel.
I think it's a Copenhagen left.
Oh, Copenhagen, that's right, Copenhagen, close. I'm biased, living close to San Francisco.
I love it. Great. Okay, so section 9 is roundabouts. We actually have a question in the chat about bike theft, but we'll save that one probably till the end. So one thing you have to remember about riding or driving through crosswalks is to always ride counterclockwise. That is the most critical. So here are steps for drivers and bicyclists. First is you want to make sure you take out the whole lane. So if you're a cyclist, that means you can, scan, signal, and scan and move out of the bike lane and into the entire lane before you enter the roundabout. You want to make sure that you yield to traffic that's already in the roundabout and also any pedestrians that may be crossing. So that's really critical. You enter the roundabout when it's safe to merge. And again, this is going counterclockwise. So ride the roundabout counterclockwise until you get to your turn or the place you need to travel to, and then you signal as you exit. So if you're a cyclist, that means, signaling to the right, and then exiting when it's safe, always looking for pedestrians. And then if you don't want to, be in the roundabout itself, maybe it just doesn't feel safe, or for whatever reason you want to walk, that's also great. You can basically be in the bike lane if you're a cyclist, dismount, walk your bike on the sidewalk and then across the crosswalk, and then remount when you feel like it's safe to do so. If you're a pedestrian, you're a skateboarder, you're a pogo sticker, all of these rules apply. So if you're walking, make sure to look both ways before you cross, and just generally be aware of your surroundings. But I think that the Stanford roundabouts are actually really awesome. They keep traffic moving, and if you know what you're doing, they're actually pretty easy to move through. So exciting. All right, last one. Art.
Number 10, use caution at intersections there where most crashes occur. So again, things to remember. You want to stop at all stop signs. You want to yield to pedestrians and mobility device users in the crosswalks. Make sure you just show courtesy and respect to people that may be in a wheelchair, maybe walking with a guide dog. Pay close attention when crossing driveways, entrances, and exits, schools and shopping centers. People are distracted. Expect the unexpected. Others could be distracted. We talk about that. And just make sure to scan and signal when turning. Always look behind you. Look all around. I try to sort of get a 360-degree view of where I am, because especially during COVID, I just find that more motorists are driving faster and they're very distracted. I've been in an intersection waiting to cross, and I see motorists who don't even see me. So, at night, use those bike lights, be really visible, wear bright colored clothing, and just be aware of that distraction factor.
Yeah, all great advice. And that concludes our presentation. We had a really great question in the chat, though.
Yeah, the question was about abandoned bikes. And so I wanted to cover that. Abandoned bikes on campus, and there are many. The program is handled by Stanford Public Safety. And due to the pandemic, there were so many bikes left behind. Public safety is now trying to manage collecting them all. They're sort of challenged with space limitations, but they do collect them. They try to reunite them with the owners. And then the bikes that aren't claimed, they have to keep them 90 days. It's due to Santa Clara County personal property before they can actually release them. They do host sales, bike sales, so you can get a pretty cool used bike for $30. You can go on the website for public safety to sign up for an appointment to get one of those bikes. And then the bikes that aren't claimed, they do donate to charities. So if you have a charity that you think would benefit from the bikes, you can follow up with Stanford Public Safety. I'll include the contact name in the Q&A to follow up and suggest a charity, because they do donate quite a few bikes to charities in the Bay Area. to get them fixed up and give them away to people that don't have a bicycle. So we want to thank you for joining us today. We covered this pretty quickly, but we'll follow up. Your questions were really good. We have some data that we're going to be sharing with you. And then I will follow up on the light data too, because I remembered we have that data from our commute survey. So I'll be able to share that information with you too. Be safe out there. Thanks, Anna. Okay, have a great day, everyone.